Hello and welcome to Uncut with Lucia. Today we are joined by Beatrice Adenodi. Beatrice is the author of the book Mindless Behavior, Breaking Through Unseen Barriers. So, Beatrice, thank you very much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yes, me too. This will be the second time I interview you, and it was such a joy to interview you last time on the Relatable Voice podcast. So,
Yes.
so for anyone who is new to you and your work, can you explain to us mindless behaviors? So, what exactly is the social initiative mindless behaviors?
So, mindless behaviors is as a company, as a social experiential. So, it's
Mm-hmm.
a social experiential company that platform that raises awareness about unconscious biases that keeps us stuck in our lives. So through different events, through the book that we know of, and through different programs, you do unravel. The whole goal is to break the cycle of reactivity and unravel things that keep not only keeps us stuck, but sheds light on how we view ourselves and how we view people around us. So that's one big thing. And then mindless behaviors, the mindless behaviors that we do on a regular basis is is the unconscious biases that keeps us stuck in our lives that actually wreak havoc. So it starts with a little small seed and it grows into something that can basically just could practically destroy your life. So I do tell people that since we're heavily conditioned to be one way, or we never really look at multiple perspectives of looking at things. So this mindless behaviors is basically helping people break the cycle of reactivity and bend their perspective reception on how they view their lives and the environment and see the environments around them.
Mm-hmm. And for our audience, Beatrice, can you give us an example of mindless behaviors? I know we see it every day
Yeah.
on the news, but
Oh my God, there are so many mindless behaviors out there. But one big one that we do, one is we seek quick fixes. So how like when we in dire situations and we need to find a solution, sometimes the first solution is not the best one. It's like it's really stepping back and really thinking about it instead of reacting to it. So like I feel like let's give you an example. Instead of handing your friend, constantly giving your friend money, right?
Mm,
Well, it's always good. A sustainable situation, it's always good to basically offer them an opportunity, which is more sustainable than basically constantly giving it to someone.
mhm.
So that's one. But there's so many. There's like I only have seven in the book, but there's so many different types of mindless behaviors out there.
And Beatrice, how does confronting our mindless behaviors improve our lives professionally and, of course, personally?
So it does improve our lives, personally and professionally, because we're starting to become aware and seeing how we show up for ourselves in reference to the environments we live in. And but it does allow us to lean into our curiosity of who we are as ourselves. But not only that, but becoming curious about people around you. Because once you start to become aware, observant, and lean into the curiosity, it starts to even get to know and dive deep in these immersive experiences, a lot of the mistakes or a lot of the things that we take for granted in our lives, it will start to alter our perception of seeing things.
Mhm. And we are going to talk about your book, but I'm curious to know, how did you first get introduced to this idea?
So this ideology has been ingrained in me for a long time. And I'll tell you, so since I am a first generation Nigerian American. So my parents are immigrants. And what I discovered is I noticed that their they came to this country to explore different opportunities on how to live and have a better life. But I noticed that there's levels of survival, that the survival mentality and the constant survival mode has already been conditioned in them. And so when they brought their culture here, when my parents brought the culture here, it's almost like similar to culture. It's kind of like parallel to the culture here, that it is surviving in a different way. So more in Nigeria, it's more a little bit like the lack of jobs, and it's like this physical poverty, right? But when you think about people here, it's a mental poverty that's happening, and sometimes physical, but it's more of this mental survival, constantly surviving mode, right? So what I noticed is that there was a parallel. There was like they're doing these two societies are doing the same thing in different ways. And I started to learn that always been good in patterns, and I started to see that pattern for within the systems and within even my close family members and work everywhere. It's the same thing. And so that's kind of like back 8 years ago, it's kind of like I got to my breaking point. And that's when I was like, this is it kind of clicked. And that's when I was able to write what I wrote.
Yeah, and I believe, of course, this was what inspired you to write this book. And can you tell us a little bit more about the book? Because actually, I saw that there is a chapter, there is an interesting chapter entitled The Masks We Wear. Of course, some people hide, or many people hide their authentic self in an effort to gain social acceptance. So, can you tell us more about your book? But if you want also to talk about this chapter, it would be very good to hear something about it from you.
Oh, no problem. So the book has a 7 story narrative that unravels different behaviors that keeps us stuck. So it's 7, but we have many of them. But these are the massive ones that I've seen that like it's really prevalent in our society, and it's really causing a lot of like fractures in our lives, like prohibiting us to get to our higher self, whatever we think, whatever goal we're trying to get. So the first chapter is actually the mask we wear. And the mask is a story about a politician that was basically like awareness. He was actually an artist, but due to the fact that his family, he came from a family of a lot of politicians, he decided to be a politician and not follow his heart. So there was like one scene in the book that basically he just dropped and walked away from his job, and he wanted to just pursue it. But the thing is that the moral of the story about the mask we wear is like, why are we wearing these many faces? Are we are we really aware of the different faces that we wear? And if we're not aware of it, are we willing to observe it and see like how you are in your workplace? Are you the same around your family? Are you the same around your social circle? Like it's almost like stepping back and seeing how many faces you wear. And in like our society, our cultural differences, our experiences, our background have us constantly wearing these different masks and constantly having us in survival mode. So the moral of the story is to become aware of them and start to like really take audit of what are we actually doing and how we're doing it. And like, what faces are we wearing? Are we wearing this preppy face? Are we wearing this, are we wearing the sad face? Like, are we struggling? Like, if we're struggling, are we asking these questions or stepping back and asking ourselves why? You know? So my book is read with a lot of nuggets in a sense of having you step back and really think like, okay, am I really showing up to the environments around me? And like, who am I? And like, why do I do what I do? Is this life I'm living? Or is it a path that is projected onto me? So those are the questions you start to question yourself as you start to read the book.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think this kind of
Yes.
behavior starts when we are still a child. Because some people, I don't know, we feel like our parents want us to do this and they want us to be always smiling, for example. I see that you have a direct and no nonsense approach, and these stories found in your book seem to be show rather than tell, which I
Mhm.
love. So can you explain what that means? You tell stories. How is like you are not your book is a book with many stories. How
Mhm.
tell us, please? I'm so curious about
Stop,
it. I
please.
just saw the mask chapter, but I want to read it.
So one of the things I discovered is that we're constantly passive. And like I do have a no nonsense approach, no bull, whatever. The thing is, I think that the more direct you are, the more clear you are, and you're able to communicate, the better your life is, right? And seeing these ugly, we have our goods and we have our bads. And like we have to face these problems that we have in our lives, but come up with sustainable solutions, right? And the only way to do that is to clear the smoke out of your mirror. So I feel like the reason why I've always been a direct person, and the reason why I wrote the book in the sense that people need to communicate better. It's not that you're not under, it's not that you're misunderstood. It's that you're not clearly basically saying what you need, or you might not know what you want, and you have not done the audit on yourself and lean into your curiosity because life is happening for us, not to us.
Mhm.
And that's one big thing that we have to do is like, oh, this has happened to me, poor me, poor me. And then at the end of the day, you're still stuck with the bag in your hand. And like you, and that's actually, it's your responsibility and to clear up a lot of the mess in our lives. And I feel like in the society, and this is what I articulate in the book and with a lot of these stories, is that, hey, you know what, some of this is self-inflicted. And even if it's not self-inflicted, you carried on this pain and you carried on these situations. So at the same time, look at it. We got to face our demons. And if we can't face them, who's going to fight our battles? No one's going to come and save us.
Exactly. Yeah, and Beatrice, why is it so hard for humans to let go mindless behaviors? But why is so hard?
It's it's so hard because we were a dish we when you were injected into a slave game, you always respond, you always act like this robot, right? And I feel like let's say this summer school and how we even grow up and some of the cultures in the world, culture, cult, like so like it's all conditioning. We're conditioned to be a certain way. And sometimes those conditions does not fit within our values, our internal values. It actually sometimes conflict with it. And you see, the thing is, we have this invisible book, and this invisible book has been given to us over by our ancestors, by everybody before us, right? And so as we were born, we held this, so we got this book, right? You'll notice it's invisible, so you really can't see it. And like, hey, you know, you're born into this family, you're born into this society. Here's the set of rules. You better go to school, behave, like be the best kid you can. Oh, by the way, you need to follow all these rules, and you better get that good job, and you better do this, you gotta do that, you gotta provide for your family, you gotta do this, do that. So everybody is doing something for people but not doing it something for them.
Mm.
So this has been, we live in a society that abandoned themselves on a regular basis. The self is missing from us.
Thank you. This was a very good explanation. Yeah. And Beatrice, I think this book came as a result of a tough transitional phase you went through.
Yeah.
So, can you tell a little bit more about that, if you don't mind, of course?
Yeah, so I do touch on in the book. So the transitional phase is, yeah, I was working 90-hour weeks. I was in a failed relationship. My friends, I've always been a problem solver, so I always was like, well, I'm just going to help you with all your problems. And having aging parents, their mindsets are still like, stuck in that survival mode. So you have all of that happening. And then, it's just that one night, it was me going to an ex's house and it just kind of spun out of control. And I just had more of a, I would say a mental break, but more of a spiritual break and a breakthrough like, whoa, wait, I'm causing this. I can change this. And so that from that day, from those different moments on, I start to unravel. I start to discover I hate this job. Why am I here? Bye. It's just, there are just different things I start to discover. And then, you have to burn something down to build something better. So
You had a bad situation, but then you took something out of it.
yeah. I know I took all the types of pain and everything I've been trying to talk about, and I just basically constructed in a situation, and I constructed and I put in words of what I've been trying to say to be more effective. Yeah.
So, Beatrice, what do you hope your reader will take away from reading your book? What are your expectations?
What I inspire them to take a look, the stories to me are highly relatable for me, but like, even other people that read the book, they said it's highly relatable. But seeing it, looking at it from a different perspective and how does it relate to you? And to you of how you're approaching and how you're reacting to situations and what can you do differently, right? And yeah, that's kind of like what I want them to take away. And I want them to take away of being like even a better problem solver, questioning everything. Because this world has a lot of questions, and if you're not asking those questions, how do you get those clarity?
So you make people think.
Yes. Yes.
This
That's
is
the major thing, is to make people think. Yeah.
And Beatrice, where can we find you? And of course, your book, your company. I know you've been
Yeah.
many things.
Yeah, definitely. You can find my book at www.mindless-behaviors.com. It's also on Amazon and a different stores that like Kindle, like Barnes and Nobles, Kobo. So it's all in those different areas. And also, yeah, you can follow me at BB Worldwide on Instagram at BB Worldwide 01.
And we'll be in contact. Actually, I would like to thank our listeners, our viewers, our audience with us today. And Beatrice, I will add all your comments to our website. And I wish to can do doing these amazing things you've been doing. Yeah. So I just wanted to know that you are always welcome to Uncut with Lucia.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
I appreciate
Anytime
it.
you publish a book or you have something else to tell us,
All I have to say is like, I always say, what is the takeaway? Lean into, become curious. Yes, become curious about yourself and become curious about your environment around you. You'll notice a whole nother world.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank Beatrice very much.
No, thank you.